Our next guest is our favorite tax savant. You've seen him before, and you'll see him again. Please welcome back board-certified tax attorney, Jeffrey B. Kahn.
There he is. Mr. Kahn is here.
Thank you.
All right.
Taxman in the house.
Taxman's in the house. Okay. So a lot going on with the election, upcoming election. Yep. We're kind of in the heat of that presidential race. And one of the things that everyone seems to have an opinion on is taxes. So we went through Trump's tax plan a few months back. Mm-hmm. And now I saw in Yahoo Finance that someone was attacking Bernie Sanders for his tax plan.
Correct.
He's trailing Hillary Clinton quite a bit right now, so we don't know if it would even matter. But there are a lot of Bernie supporters out there, a lot, who still think he has a chance to win.
That's correct.
So, Jeff, today I thought it'd be a good idea to have you break down the Burns tax plan to see if there's some legitimacy there, or if this article in Yahoo was a little bit biased. So what can you tell us about Bernie's tax plan?
Well, with Bernie's tax plan, basically he's looking to raise taxes by at least $1 trillion, $1.2 trillion, and the article does go to point out that it's looking at $2.5 trillion after a few years. And basically what he's looking to do with the increased revenues is essentially fund public education post-high school, so that anyone who wants to go to college, public university, or public college, by the way, not private, can essentially go for free. That's what he's looking to do. But the way he's going about funding this huge expense, I think it's going to be counterproductive to the economy and actually cost jobs.
Where does he think he can find this $1.2 trillion, Jeff?
Well,
is it income tax that's going to be raised?
Yeah, he thinks that essentially by taxing wealthy Americans, by taxing the speculators on Wall Street, and by hitting employers with an additional 6.2% payroll tax, that this is how he's going to fund it. I think that payroll tax, that's a killer in his plan.
6%?
Yeah, 6.2% extra.
Federal.
Remember, employers are already paying about that amount for the employer share of the Social Security tax. Now, essentially, if you're going to double that for the employers, what do you think the employers are going to do? They're going to cut back on wage increases. They're going to cut back on hiring. So that's great. In a few years, you have all these people graduating from public universities because, they got to go there for free under the Bernie Sanders plan, but there's not going to be any jobs waiting for them. Instead, any of these new jobs, they're going to be outsourced to places where they're not going to have to worry about paying the 6.2% tax.
Yeah, to keep jobs in the United States would be helpful.
Correct.
Not to move them out of the United States. We already have that happening.
Exactly.
In record numbers. In fact, we just saw Ford is opening their biggest plant ever, their biggest production plant ever in Mexico. That's a shame. Those are really good jobs. Those are jobs that should be here in the United States. And a tax like that is not going to help.
Exactly. It really is a regressive tax, and it's a tax that's going to basically destabilize or turn away potential employment. Like a good example, San Francisco. San Francisco for a long time based its city license tax on payroll. So what that meant was the more people you hired to work in the city, the higher the city tax you're going to have to end up paying. Well, recently they changed that. They changed to gross receipts basis, which is how most cities set up their local taxes, where basically you pay a tax like a sales tax based on how much your sales are.
That's one of those things where I think for Bernie, unfortunately, I like the guy. I think he's a good man. I think he has good intentions.
Yeah.
And I think we could do a lot worse as far as presidents are concerned. But not understanding the business element, this is what I mean.
Yeah,
if you don't understand how businesses run and how people make decisions in business, you can come up with something like this and go, it's just 6%. They'll be fine. It's just 6%. But at the end of the day, that's a big problem. 6% is a lot.
It is a lot.
Now, some of these candidates, Jeff, are talking about abolishing the IRS. Have you heard that one?
Oh, everyone. I've heard it all the time. It's been going on for decades. Look, I'm not worried about job security because the government doesn't operate for free. They've got to get their revenues from somewhere. I guess you could say they could just print money, but Yeah. Forget it. The
Yeah.
dollar would be worth nothing.
Yeah, right.
So as long as there's government, they need to get revenues
They
from
need to get
somewhere.
revenue. I think a flat tax is something that's reasonable for a candidate to proposition, potential constituents with. But the idea of being able to sit there and say, I'm going to abolish the IRS. When you hear a candidate say that, they're full of it. There's no way they could possibly believe that they could accomplish that on their own.
That's right.
It's just impossible.
Yeah.
Now, to put forth a plan, an idea of here's a flat tax plan, an idea, that's one thing. But to say you're going to abolish the IRS means that you're grandstanding. It's not realistic.
Many foreign countries, actually, their tax system is not based on income taxes. Like here, they use the value-added tax. And what that means is that every level of service or a purchase, from a manufacturer to a wholesaler to a retailer, service provider to a customer, you're paying a set level of tax. Maybe it's 10%, maybe it's 15%, whatever. So to the extent you pay a tax to the manufacturer, now you end up collecting a tax from the customer. Those two will end up offsetting. So the bottom line is, even though you're going down the food chain or up the food chain, however you want to look at it, and each bite becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, you're still getting credit for the previous bites or the previous payments that you had, to make.
What do you think about a national sales tax? Is that something that could be effective, in your opinion?
That could be. Now, that's a tax, of course, on expenditures. And where something like that falls really hard would be on poor people, the middle class, who essentially will spend a greater share of their money than, say, like somebody who's wealthy. Because after all, once you take out like mortgage payments and stuff like that, it really costs the same amount of money for us to eat, breathe, clothe ourselves, that kind of stuff. And so, of course, if that's all being constant, those costs are being constant, it's less of a drain for somebody who's wealthy to have to pay maybe, 5% more in a national sales tax versus, somebody who's struggling and trying to make ends meet, and now all of a sudden on these basic purchases, they got to pay like another 5% more in sales tax.
No, that makes sense. Great stuff from board-certified tax attorney Jeffrey B. Kahn. Thank you so much for being here, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tim.
Tax questions, tax problems, call Jeffrey Kahn. He will take care of things for you. He's done it for me multiple times, hit a grand slam every time. You can trust him, I guarantee you that. And stick around for more Smarter San Diego TV, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else, commercial free.